We're ready.
Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to start with some experiences I've had over the past week or so, and I think it was it began around last weekend most intensely, and then the successive experiences that I had were slightly less intense. But I'll explain. Basically, in each one, I was uh, helping someone who had made their transition,
Oh.
who had died, um, and was still dealing with various things and could not progress.
Oh.
So in these experiences, I was um, in the other realm and interacting with the spirits of these people who had transitioned.
Oh.
Um, and the most intense one, and this happened 3 times over the last week or so. The most intense of these experiences was closer to last weekend, and then had another one around maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, and then another one maybe Thursday, Friday.
You've been busy.
I guess.
Man.
But I just wanted to just describe them, and then ask if anyone else had any kind of experience that they would consider significant for them over the past week or so. Um, but as I said, in each of the cases, in each of the experiences, I was helping someone who had already transitioned. So the first one, well, and I should say each of these, I remember them as very intense, vivid dreams. But there's a quality to them that lets me know that they were more than sort of just dreams, as in me, my own subconscious working something out. I was interacting with other beings who apparently needed help. And I mentioned this once before, that we actually all do this in various ways, but we are usually unconscious of this fact, because when we're asleep, we go places and do things, and one of the things that we do is give help to other people in various ways. Um, so the first of these experiences was the most intense, and it was, I'll describe sort of the dreamlike state that was at the beginning of it, and then how it progressed. But I woke up in the dream in a house that was similar to one I lived in, and I had this overwhelming feeling of like a foreboding presence. You know how people when people say the house is haunted or whatever, they can feel something that is watching them, or they can feel like the weight. Um, that experience, I think, accompanies the interaction with the other realm a lot, and you sort of learn to be sort of comfortable with that, and it doesn't feel foreboding in the same way that it can in the beginning. But I had that intense feeling, and then I got up and walked around, and I looked down the hallway, and in the hallway I could see there were lined up, sort of in the hallway, actually many spirits of people, and I instantly knew that they all needed something. Um, and it was kind of like the ones that were closest to me were the ones who were, I guess, easiest to give help to, and the ones that were distant from me in the hallway were needed a lot of work. Um, but the first one that approached me, or that I approached, was a little boy, um, and I could tell that he was scared and confused and didn't understand what was going on. Um, and so I talked to him, and then specifics always get blurry, but what ended up happening was I was sort of chaperoning him, or like helping him work through what he needed to work through in order to leave this plane. Um, and it took the form of, imagine like a giant open outdoor amphitheater. And everything that he needed to work out was being played before, it was before him and before me, but it was all within him, um, in this amphitheater. So all the drama of his life and all the things that he wasn't sure about, like all his regrets and everything, were being played out, and he was resolving them. So kind of like you set up, if you had you're writing your own story, and you write it so that you come out victorious over whatever the obstacle was. It's kind of what was happening in this giant amphitheater that we were seeing. And at the end, the boy didn't look like a boy, he looked like a man, and he was sort of sitting on this throne-like looking thing, overseeing the amphitheater, like he was pleased with how it had played out. And then when I got the sense that it was all finished, in that everything he needed to work out and understand about himself was done, everything in the amphitheater disappeared, the boy disappeared, and it was black. It was like kind of like dark bubbling water on the sort of floor of the amphitheater, or the whatever the ground was. And then the boy rose up through the black, sort of dark bubbling water. And then as soon as he was above the water, light started moving outwards from him instantly everywhere. And the water sort of became still and perfect, and light was everywhere, and there was, I can only describe it as like it was like a bright white, sort of pinkish hued crystal lattice work. So have you ever seen those like descriptions of the molecular structure of crystals or things like that? You can kind of see all the points sort of extending forever. It was like that. Everything was on, everything was light, everything was amazingly happy, and everybody there was at peace. But that peace doesn't mean stagnation. It meant all sort of self-imposed, and all the obstacles that you have to truly understanding who you are, and sort of what this reality is, and the ways in which those obstacles affect your freedom to pursue the things you genuinely want. All of those were removed. And it was infinite. I looked around in every single direction, and it was like that lattice work extended in all directions. And there were, I could tell, other people who were sort of in the same place, in the same sort of state of being, that were moving through the lattice work, like in all directions. And I could tell that it was finished, and he was intensely happy, and I didn't want to leave, and I was like, oh no, come back. And we basically said tearful goodbyes. And I was like feeling this as I was going through this experience, but I understood that he was finished and I needed to leave. And so I woke up not long after that, still with that intense sort of feeling, and remembering what it felt like at least to some degree, to feel that joy and that undescribable happiness that was present in the place where he was, where his spirit was. So that's the first experience I had, which was closer to last weekend. The other two were less sort of intense, and my understanding of that is that whatever energy source I was riding off of was strongest closer to that first experience, and then it sort of graduated down over the course of the week. But the second experience was me also helping someone who had transitioned. Why am I blanking on the second experience? Let me come back to the second experience, but I'll talk about the third one. So the third one was the least, I think it was, in terms of what the experience was like, it was very influenced by whatever was going on in my own subconscious. So it was more dreamlike than the other ones, which are much more clear and vivid. But the third one was also, I woke in the dream state in a house, and I could feel the sense that something was not right. And I had the sort of typical, when people talk about stereotypical haunting experiences in their house, it was like that in the dream. There were strange things happening in the house. I got the sense that there was something or someone who was dealing with something that they didn't know how to deal with. And I had I saw the floating, sort of shifty, almost mist-like apparition appear before me, and I knew it was a woman. And for some reason, she just couldn't move on. For some reason, she was hanging on to something. But although that experience, there was less of sort of direct participation in her process of dealing with whatever she needed to deal with. I think that whole thing happened sort of instantaneously in front of me, and I was not able to see it all. But what happened is basically the apparition appeared before me, and I got this wave of sort of negativity, and then I responded to that wave of negativity, and then it became very light, the apparition itself, and then dissipated, and then disappeared in a flash. And I got the sense that that same process that I went through with the boy happened to this woman, but much more sort of quickly. So that was the third experience, and I wrote this down. I need to look this up down because the second experience was also that. So the second experience was a bit different, although I think it still dealt with me interacting with a spirit of a person that was sort of present in the physical a long time ago. I was walking through what looked like ruins of a very old civilization. I think it could have been in South America, Central America, or something. And I remember my attention being drawn to a carving on like a broken wall or a broken column, and it was a very deep blue bird. It looked like a big falcon or a big owl or something like that, and I could tell that was very significant. But as I was wandering through these sort of ruins, I came across a little girl, and she must have been native to that, whatever that area was. She looked like she could have been Central American, South American. And I could tell she was sort of also hanging on to whatever it was that was responsible for that civilization's demise. And I don't remember too much what happened after I encountered her, but I think the same process happened. And eventually I left that area where the ruins were as I began to become more and more sort of present back into this sort of regular material experience. So those are my 3 experiences, and I wanted to share those with you and ask if anyone else had anything that was significant to them happen over the course of the past week or so. Just because of a few things I've heard about the energy that is available to us over the past week or so, in that the period between the 16th and the 18th of June was supposedly one of the most highly spiritually active and the energy available for us to sort of use to do whatever we do was greater than any other time in this year. And I think it's significant that today is the solstice, because we're sort of coming right off of this period. And I believe that my awareness of these experiences was aided by whatever that sort of whatever was available energetically. And the fact that I was aware of them in the sort of very vivid, clear way I was aware of them was aided by this sort of time period we're in, and this time of the year with the solstice, etc. So that's what I experienced over the last week or so.
Hey, Nick.
Yep.
This is Raina. As soon as you started talking about the stream, I remembered one I've had. I didn't write down the date, but it was fairly recently. And in that dream, again, it was one of those very vivid dreams. I saw Uncle Rolando, and I can't. It was odd to me because I've seen people in our family who transition after they've transitioned, but typically it's longer. Like Grandma Florence, it was quite a long way. It's like it took years before I saw her. And with him, this isn't very long. Or Gladys, it was a while. But I don't remember so much about our interaction, but I remember in that dream feeling like I needed to do something to help him. And I was casting about for that thing that I needed to do to help him. And as the dream evolved, because it was almost like a gathering of family, not just him, people transitioned, but those who were still present. So as I was casting about, feeling this urgent need to do something to help him, I ended up talking to Uncle Chivvis, who I haven't talked to in years, but talking for a long time, sitting there talking with Uncle Chivvis. And somehow that was part of it. I couldn't quite make the connection, but engaging with him was part of that, helping, giving Uncle Rolando what he needed. And I forgot to call Mom when I had the dream. I kept meaning to, and it was a busy time for me. But it was just a very, it's the first time I had a dream where I felt like I needed to do something to help. Like I said, I've had ones where I've interacted with some grandma I'd never really talked to in the dream. She doesn't talk. But I'm glad that when she comes, I always talk to quite a bit. But she's usually showing me something.
Yeah.
But this one was the first time I felt I needed to do something for someone who transitioned.
That's amazing, because I don't know why I didn't. I wrote something. I had another dream that it reminded me of when I first saw wherever Rolando was sort of lying in the funeral home. The dream took place in a place that felt very similar to that, and I saw people I knew in the audience, sitting. And I don't know why I blanked on this one, but good thing I wrote it down. But thank you, Rainey, because apparently you needed to speak on, say what you said before I could remember that.
Yeah, you were talking about the stadium with yours, and I thought of Uncle Rolando when I went to see him participating in his events when he was in his track and field, and pretty much could have qualified for the Olympics, but and the bubbling waters releasing, and then the crystalline, the balance achieved. So, anyway.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let me tell you about, because I had another experience. This was over the same time period. I was in what was I say? There was a funeral going on in a funeral home. I think it was a funeral home, not a church. So he was the wake, I think that's what that's called. But anyway, I was walking through the people down the central aisle towards the casket, and I was aware that no one could see me. And I saw sitting, sort of lying in the casket was the spirit of this man, and it looked like a Caucasian guy with a beard and glasses. Now that I think about it, that might have been my dad when he was younger. Because my dad was in the audience in the stream watching as well. And I noticed that no one else could see that spirit. And so I was like, what are you doing? And then I took his hand, and then we sort of floated around the room. And he was confused. He was like, how am I able to do this? And I was like, you did, essentially. And I was answering his questions, and I could feel the sort of transfer of that same sort of feeling of joy to him that I remembered feeling in the previous dream. That was like a day or so before that, with the little boy in the crystal infinite universe. And I remember him being a bit more at peace after I explained whatever it was I was explaining to him. And then we were floating around. He was like looking at the funeral. He was like, "Oh my goodness!" And then I woke up not long after that. But it gave me those similar vibes. And I don't necessarily know if it was Uncle Orlando, because it didn't look like Uncle Orlando to me, but it didn't necessarily matter because my own subconscious is probably filtering what I'm seeing and coloring or being projected onto what I'm seeing. Is how that works a lot of the time. But anyway, no, thank you, Rania.
Sure thing.
Well, since you all are talking, I've also had some dreams not as vivid, but recently I dreamt of. It was like the phrase, the cloud of witnesses sort of phrase. And so I saw Rolando and Mom and Dad and Gladys and my sister Gladys, my brother Everett, and even Raymond, the baby that I'd never seen before, because he passed before we were even born. But it's not that I saw exactly what he looked like. It was just I knew that was the essence. But it didn't just see that. Then I saw all the people that came before them, like my grandparents and all of that. And then it branched out to not just our immediate family, but other family members of other family members. And it was like this gallery of people, and they were just standing there. It's almost like they were saying, and not saying anything, but it's almost like they were sort of rooting you on, but not physically saying anything. Like you made it, or sort of that kind of thing. So that was one of the ones I've had very recently. And then there's another one that I can't remember, except, I know what it was. Again, it was about Ro, and Ro was saying, "Hey, BJ Rolando, everything's okay." That kind of thing. Because he would call me and say, "Hey, BJ Rolando, what you doing? You okay?" But this time he said, "Hey, BJ Rolando, everything's okay," sort of thing. And then I dreamt of a child. But it was a little girl, but I don't remember that one. But I know it was the essence of a child who had transitioned, and I don't remember that one. But yeah, I've had some experiences this past week too. Week or two.
So what does it mean to you, Nick, and Barbara, and Raymond?
To me, it just means that I think I'm accepting the responsibility that I have, and beginning to, in the way that it's beginning to filter into my normal sort of conscious mind, as opposed to always being in the background. It's me. My feeling is that it's me becoming aware of the responsibility and the increasing need to do this for more people.
Nick, as you talked, what I got in my brain was Nick's spiritual counseling sessions, and it sounds funny, but it's not. It's deeper than, you know, the Lucy counseling, you know, Peanuts counseling 5 cents thing. But when you said all the people who were standing there waiting, it's like, wow, what an awesome responsibility and experience to be able to know that, you know, unlike what we thought before, you have to be dead or transition to do the stuff that it reaffirms that, wow, we're in the spiritual now, and isn't it awesome that we can help someone who's transitioned before. And even when you talked about the girl hundreds of years ago, in the spiritual realm, that doesn't mean anything. That reaffirms that time doesn't mean anything.
As you were talking, I felt like it was a return to